So again, I'm Keith. So I'm reviewing this episode, Teen Wolf, episode 6 of season 6, called Ghosted. Really quick because I'll say it at the end of the video, but I'm a part of a bigger channel called Plugged On. I'll put a link to the YouTube channel in the description, and I'll have links to our Facebook page and our Twitter page. So give us a like and a follow and all that shit on there. Just because I'm doing this here because reasons. But, go support that channel. That's where all the good stuff, there's not going to be much besides this on this channel. That's where all the good stuff is. So we're at Ghosted. So there's mainly 3 stories that happen in this episode. There's Melissa and Argent and trying to heal him from the attack from the Ghost Riders 2 episodes ago. There's Hayden and Liam, and they're trying to figure out how to catch a Ghost Rider, and then Scott, Lydia, and Malia going to Canaan to figure stuff out. So I'll do the stuff at Canaan first, just because that's the biggest section of the episode. So the episode starts off with Lydia having a vision of the day that the Ghost Riders came in mass and took everybody from Canaan, except for one person. So they find out that there's not, literally there's nothing about Canaan. All there is a map from 30 years ago that it has Canaan on it, and that's it. That's all they can find out. So they go there, and it's a ghost town. It's basically abandoned. And so one of the things that's kind of happening there is everybody, well, Scott and Malia are both having hallucinations. So Scott hallucinates that he sees his mother with a bite mark in the back of her head, which is obviously a reference to the attacks that Mr. Douglas is doing in Beacon Hills. And Malia sees her dead mother and sister lying on the ground, and then she sees Theo, who shoots her in the stomach, kind of similar to last season, and then she falls, and then they kind of start to pull her into the ground. This sequence was a little weird just because especially her little sister seemed older than what they said she was, but maybe this was she's hallucinating what she would have looked like if she would have survived. That's the only thing I can come up with, maybe, which I guess makes sense. It's just a weird little thing that they'll probably never explain. It's because I think her sister was really, really young. Her sister was 10. I think her sister was 6, and the actress that they had playing her sister looks a little bit older than 6. Actually, looks more like she's 10, but it's neither here nor there. So they eventually see a boy running around the town, and they follow him, and they basically find a house where there's a lady named Lorraine staying there, and she kind of acts as if everybody just left Canaan, and so and her son Caleb. And so after a while, they kind of figure out that they're upsetting Lorraine and something supernatural is happening. So they try to leave, and the door slams shut, and Scott can't break the door open, and Malia can't punch through the glass. And so then Lorraine's not letting him leave. So Scott and Malia decide to follow Caleb into a basement area which is flooded, and they find out that he was born in the late 70s and he already died. And then it's revealed through other hallucinations that Malia and Scott that are having that he drowned. So Lydia keeps talking to Lorraine, and she finds out that Lorraine is or was a banshee. That's kind of not explained all that well in the episode. So she sees what actually happened. She sees that she saw the Ghost Riders at the last minute, and then they let her live. But they let her live because she's a banshee. And so then eventually Lorraine lets Scott and Malia go because they're drowning. When they try to leave Caleb's room, they're act like they're drowning, water's coming out of their mouth and they can't breathe. So when they go back to Beacon Hills, Lydia tells Scott and Malia what she saw, and she says that, well, what happens when you get taken, it's a fate worse than death. Your soul gets hollowed out, and you become a Ghost Rider, which is really interesting, and I'll get into more of that once I'm done recapping the episode. The next thing, which is really short, was Melissa and Argent. So his wounds are supernaturally affected, so he gives her a bunch of Celtic herbs to mix together to try to heal him, and then eventually it heals his cuts, and there's some cutesy moments between them, and that's basically their whole thing. He can't go into surgery because they cut out the dead flesh. He's afraid that the infection will spread to everyone, so they kind of have to go around that, and they go into the basement of the hospital. Liam and Hayden are given the task of trying to capture a ghost hunter, or a ghost rider. Ghost hunter. Nah, that's not what it is. A ghost rider. And so they decide they're going to use stuff from the faculty room to make a lightning rod. They run into Mr. Douglas, who had heard of their plan. So while talking with him, they figure out that it's like, well, maybe we need to channel a lightning bolt. We need to find somebody who can channel that power. And at first they're like, well, not even Kira can do that. We're not sure if she can do that. But then they remember that Josh could from last season. They remember that Theo had his powers. So they end up going back down to the tunnels, meeting up with Noshiko, who was... It was strange that they brought her back. I mean, I like that they brought her back because then it's not like other characters where they just kind of vanish. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to think of an example of a character who just kind of vanished. I mean, like, Jackson kind of vanished. And say, because Jackson, I mean, the thing with Colton Haynes leaving an Arden show are very similar. They both just kind of left the show. They weren't killed off. So it's like, you know, but Jackson was, like, mentioned a couple of times in Season 3. And there was some references in all of season 3, but then that was it. Whereas, you know, at least now they're acknowledging Kira still exists, which is nice. She gives them Kira's sword, he stabs in the ground, and Theo comes back. But they find out that he no longer has Josh's powers, and so they're like, all right, we'll put him back. But he goes, I know about the Ghost Riders. I know more than you think I know. When he looks at Mr. Douglas, basically saying that he knows who he is. But then you also remember Styles. And so 2 other bits and pieces that come up at the end of the episode when Scott and them meet up with, they find Theo at Scott's house, is that apparently the Ghost Riders don't usually stay at a place for all that long. So for whatever reason, they're stuck. And then the other thing was that Lorraine is a Morgan, which is also something that's never quite explained. So I'm assuming that she was a Banshee and she became a Morgan when the town got abandoned. And now that's why she's able to bend reality. She was able to kind of bring her dead son back and able to, you know, nullify Scott and Leah's powers. And at the very end of the episode, we see Noah, Sheriff. I'll just keep calling him Sheriff. Noah's just weird. He was walking past where Styles' room would be, and he peels back the wallpaper, and he sees. And so then in the previews for the next episode, we're seeing that Mr. Douglas gets into a confrontation with the Ghost Riders. Theo's still around. We see that Lydia and Sheriff are in Styles' room, and she's talking like, you don't want to remember him, and things like that. So it's all going to get really interesting. The stuff about the Ghost Riders, like, if you get taken becoming a Ghost Rider, that kind of makes sense in a lot of ways, because then, like, if they were just taking people, why erase people's memories? Because if that's the case, they're trying to make more Ghost Riders, and then it also makes sense because they don't want anybody to save these people. You know, they want to, you know, make more of them. So, which that makes that incredibly interesting, and it makes it fun. So yeah, that's basically the whole episode. This half season's ramping up a little bit, which I like. I'm getting excited for the back half. I mean, after 3 weeks of no Teen Wolf, it's been a little weird. I've had to like just sit and simmer over all the stuff that was talked about in the last episode. But the one thing I want to end this video with is I want to talk about Dylan O'Brien, because I feel like I'm talking about him a lot because he's the biggest question mark about this whole season. So I think the week before Christmas, he came back on set and he filmed for 8 days. And what the narrative is right now is that he's done filming Teen Wolf. By a lot of accounts, by what a lot of people are saying, he's done filming Teen Wolf, period. Because some people are saying it was his last day of filming, and it wasn't like, oh, last day of 6A, or, you know, last day until 6B, or something like that. It was last day, and there was a lot of social media posts, which make it, with like that kind of pull-up of like people, like a lot of people working behind the scenes posting like that, it makes it seem like he's done. Which kind of calls into question like whether or not he's going to be in 6B. And so, one of the higher-ups, one of the producers or writers, I forget, I don't have the information off the top of my head, said that it's because he's, that they managed to film enough stuff for 8 episodes. So we know they're doing episode 10, which means these 7 episodes of the second half of season 6. Now, the way the filming works, typically, unlike Teen Wolf, and this is, I saw on the Teen Wolf Wiki and the TeenWolfNews.com, which I recommend checking out those websites because they have a lot of information on that. He said that it usually takes like 1 to 2 weeks, like anywhere between like 10 to 14 days to film an episode. It usually takes 1 to 2 weeks, so it can take anywhere from 5 to like 14 days to film an episode, depending on how quickly they are. And it's also they have 2 units, so that they're filming in different spots, and so it's not one production crew the whole time, and that way they can get a lot done. And so even if they film both units at the same time during this, they only have enough for 16 days, which is at best 2 full episodes if they're filming 2 full episodes in their entirety. Now, but this calls into a couple quick issues, which is how much of episode 10 did they film? Did they not film any of it? Which means if they didn't film any of it, that means they had to spend a lot more time on that, which means he's going to be in even less scenes in season 6. But if they just have to film Dylan's scenes, then he can be in a little bit more. But either way, they've already filmed the episodes 11 through 15, if I'm not mistaken, of the second episode of season 6. They already filmed those 5, so those episodes are already mostly finished. So especially since the filming process seems to be similar to how they did it in 6A, if Stiles is going to be in season 6 after episode 10, he's not going to have a very big role. It's kind of ironic that Noshiko is back in this episode because that makes it like kind of like her and Kira's father, like, in seasons 4 and 5, like, they're around, but they're not every episode, and you only see them for bits and pieces at a time. So it's like, so he might have, like, that kind of a minor role, if he has a role at all. And I think Will Wallace and a couple other people summed it up the best, that if Dylan O'Brien isn't in season 6B, it wasn't a decision that was made lightly. I mean, his accident, despite how tragic it was, threw a lot of schedules out of whack. It threw filming Death Cure out of whack. It threw filming Teen Wolf out of whack. I also don't doubt that it made filming American Assassin out of whack. And so the 3 different corporations had to be placated. Viacom, who owns MTV, the corporations behind Death Cure and American Assassin, they all have to be placated while making his schedule. So, it's not like, we're just not going to have him. I mean, it might be because they have to, which sucks. But I honestly think this is the best for Dylan O'Brien. He's a phenomenal actor, and I feel like he can just spread his wings a little bit more after this. He can do more movies. I nobody's going to confirm this because why would they? But there was the rumors about a year ago now when they were saying that Dylan O'Brien that Marvel was looking at Dylan O'Brien to play Spider-Man. And maybe part of the reason they said no is because, playing Spider-Man is going to be a pretty big commitment. And he's already got a pretty big commitment with Teen Wolf. So it's like, and no offense, playing Peter Parker is a little bit bigger than playing Stiles on Teen Wolf. So I think that maybe this might be best for his career. And I mean, all in all, the show ending, I think, is the best for a lot of people's careers. Because a lot of these actors, this is where they got their start. So now we can see them a little bit more doing other things. I really want to see what Holland Roden can do in other movies, you know what I mean, or TV shows even. I mean, there's the rumor that she's going to be on the Shannara Chronicles, and apparently Tyler Posey is going to have some part in either War of the Worlds or Let the Right One In, to some extent. We don't know, but it's like, I think that's cool that like now they can start to bridge out. But yeah, so again, don't forget to check out Plugged On, links in the description, all that good stuff. I'll be doing I'll be doing every episode of Teen Wolf on this channel, with the exception of the mid-season finale. I'm going to do that on the Plugged On channel. So, yeah, thanks for watching, and goodbye.